Okay, I just wanted to first welcome you guys all to the TCA launch meeting. Thank you guys for all coming. I think I either knew most of you guys or met you when you checked in, but my name is Jeff Noon. I was working as staff to help put this together. You may have seen the two interns who are also sitting at the registration table with me. They're Sarah Yamamoto from Stanford Taiko. She's up there taking some pictures right now. And Helen Park from UCSD Asayake Taiko. She is still at the registration booth because not everyone has showed up yet. So, yeah. So I'm going to hand this off very shortly to Steve Sano, but before I do that, I just wanted to welcome anyone who's watching via live stream. This is being transmitted through the interwebs to anyone who wants to watch it. So no cussing, everyone. Just putting that out there. All right. So Steve Sano. Oh, yeah. Okay. If you didn't know already, so just out the door to the left, down the hall, there are restrooms. Most of the activities for the weekend will be happening either in this room or Braun Rehearsal Hall, which is just down the hall across from the restrooms. All of the meals will be happening in the courtyard, which is right behind where the registration tables were set up. So about 90% of the activities will be taking place in these three rooms. There will be one activity during tomorrow's session, which will be taking place in Dingelspiel Rehearsal Hall, which is literally the next building over. So most of the things that will be happening this weekend will be taking place in here. Parking for tomorrow, hopefully you guys didn't have too many problems parking today. I know that lot gets kind of busy at times, but parking tomorrow hopefully will be a lot easier. The lot should be free. You do not have to pay for parking tomorrow. So no need to worry about that. For tomorrow and Sunday, we'll be starting promptly at 9 a.m. I know that's early, but hopefully you guys will all be able to get here on time so we can start promptly at 9. And also, you may have seen this in the email that I sent out a few days ago, but if you would like to get online on the wireless network here, first you have to choose the Stanford wireless network, and then it will ask you for a login and password. And there are 3 different usernames that we have set up: Taiko Launch 1, Taiko Launch 2, and Taiko Launch 3. And the password for all of them is Renshu Taiko, no caps, no spaces. If you have questions about that, let me know. It was also in the email that I sent out to all of you guys. All right, I think that's it. Yeah. All right, so Steve Sano from the Stanford Department of Music.
Thank you, Jeff. Welcome, everyone. I'll make this really short. My name is Steve Sano. I'm the chair of the Department of Music here at Stanford, and along with Linda Oichi, we're service faculty advisors for Stanford Taiko. And so this is our official welcome to all of you on behalf of the Stanford community. It's great to have you all here and to help. We're really honored to help facilitate this launch of this new entity, Taiko Community Alliance. And it's my great pleasure to turn this session, this opening plenary, over to Alan Okada, who is going to take you through the first portion. Alan, of course, one of the founding members of Sodaiko in New York, founded back in 1979. Alan, take it away.
Hi. So I know about half of you, and I hope I'll get to know the other half of you during the course of this weekend. First of all, I want to thank Steve, Linda, the local committee, the board members, the staff, the other people who have made this weekend possible. I also want to say that it's a unique opportunity to be in a place which has been a tremendous supporter of Taiko. So Stanford was founded in 1891. The Stanford Taiko Group was created and had its debut 101 years later, so in 1992. And so when you think about Stanford, Stanford is one of the nodes of the ARPANET, which was the predecessor to the intranet. Stanford is a place that has a linear accelerator. Stanford is this kind of leading edge place. When the Stanford Taiko group debuted in 1992, they had a total of 2 chudaiko, 1 odaiko, a tom-tom, and a cowbell. And 2 of the founding members of Stanford Taiko are here and actually were working on this gathering. So Linda and Susan were founding members of the Stanford Taiko group. Stanford Taiko, which is a group that tours internationally. Stanford was also the first intercollegiate Taiko gathering in 1995 and was the host for the 2011 NATC, the last NATC, before the one that's going to happen in 2015. So Stanford has been an enormous supporter of Taiko and is graciously hosting this seminal event, kind of in North American Taiko history. One of the issues the reason I'm up here, and the reason the rest of us are speaking, is we've been involved with the Taiko conferences since the beginning. And one of the questions that come up again and again and again during the course of the conversations and the planning and even the earliest stages was who speaks for Taiko? And that's one of the reasons there hasn't been a national Taiko organization, because it's really difficult to say who speaks for Taiko. In the end, all of you speak for Taiko, and all of the people that are not in the room speak for Taiko. And so over the course of this weekend, one of the things that you're going to be reminded several times is, in addition to your own personal opinions, which I hope you all share during the course of the next few days, if you look at your name tag, you have the voice of somebody else inside your name tag who you've spoken to and who you also need to represent. And so, I said during the course of the planning, this is a little schizophrenic. I have to be me, but I also have to be the other person who's in my name tag. But in addition to yourself and the person in your name tag, you represent a lot of other Taiko players in this country and around the world. The effort to pull this together and encompass a census, which is probably the largest census of Taiko players that's ever been done. And so there were some 1,400 respondents, and then later on you'll see some of the data from the census. And the relatively low-key request for support encompassed about 100 donations. And I think that the last number was $6,800. Was raised from people with basically saying, "Would you like to help out?" And there'll be other discussions about this organization going forward, and other ways in which you'll be able to help. I asked Jeff, or I asked the committee a question, and Jeff answered the question. So you'll notice that even though we are a theoretically representative sampling of Taiko and Taiko leaders, what is the Taiko experience represented in this room? So you've got roughly 60 people, and so the people in this room represent over 700 years of Taiko experience. So the one thing I think is important to note is that those of us who have a lot of years of Taiko experience acknowledge we don't know everything. Those are the people that are very new to Taiko, have a lot to offer in this conversation. And they have a unique perspective on what Taiko is that we've seen, and our views have changed, and the Taiko world has changed. Roy and Johnny are going to talk about how we got to this meeting and how we hope to move forward from this meeting and with this organization, and how the NATC essentially evolved into this. There's a process slide, which I think makes a lot of sense. And if you could pull up that slide. There we go. All right, so this is fairly logical. Today we're going to talk about NACC and TCA history. Who are the players, the census results, the relationship that we have with JCCC over the last period of time from the 1997 Taiko conference. And then why we're creating an organization to move that forward and to move other issues forward for the Taiko community. And so Saturday morning, we're going to go through these core values, guiding principles, and lessons learned. And there'll be breakout groups and workshops with all of you in order to drive forward that discussion. And then design thinking and the improvisation workshop are Saturday afternoon to kind of help us build ways in which we can move forward from there. And then the Sunday morning session is really what's next, and it's going to talk about kind of governance and organization. And throughout this whole process, I think that one of the things that's brought us to this place is a real concern with the value of the NATC and how that will be shaped going forward. And so the NATC for 2015 is a part of that ongoing discussion. And so by the time we get to Sunday, there's going to be a series of ideas, and guiding principles, and there are going to be deliverables that we're going to discuss and reach agreement on. So getting back to the whole question of who speaks for Taiko, the old advisory committee, and I mean that literally too, the old advisory committee, has always worked on the premise that we are being representative of the community at large, but we're trying to encompass a broader range of ideas and really try to speak for the broadest number of groups and individuals who are engaged in Taiko, because it's really something that we should all be a part of and we should all have input on. And so throughout this weekend, that's what we're asking you to do, to openly share your ideas, to represent the person who's in your name tag, to think about your groups and other groups, and to think about the future of Taiko. I'm going to introduce Roy. You all know Roy. Roy is one of the founders of San Jose Taiko. He and PJ were National Heritage Fellows. He has been the chair of the NATC Advisory Committee since the beginning. Almost. So, Roy.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, we have a PowerPoint that we're going to be presentation we're going to be giving you, plus other things. So it's my pleasure to be here this afternoon. And what I've been assigned to do is try to explain to you or give you the background or history about the conference and how it started. So please bear with me as I try to go through this. So Taiko in North America, this is going to run through, just gives you an idea of the growth of Taiko here. In 1965, there was nothing, and after that, it kind of started ballooning out. But this gives you an idea. It started with basically, well, I guess we have to remember that it started really in California with 3 Taiko groups, and but the originally thing that we need to look at and remember is Kumidaiko started in Japan in 1951 with Daihatsu Oguchi, whose picture's at the top there. And the other pictures includes the Kinada Taiko, San Francisco Taiko Dojo, and San Jose Taiko in the early days. So with Oguchi Sensei starting in 1951 with Osua Taiko, 17 years later, Seiichi Tanaka began San Francisco Taiko Dojo in 1968. In 1969, Kinada Taiko started at the Senshin Buddhist Church in Los Angeles, and San Jose Taiko we began in 1973. So this is a little bit of a history background, but around that time, it was pretty exciting about the start of Taiko here in different ways. It was really kind of brand new for all of us, and we're just kind of beginning. But it was just actually kind of exciting worldwide, or even in Japan, because in 1969, Takayasu Den started his group, Onde Koza, on Sado Island in Japan. And so it was really kind of an exciting growth for Taiko that was beginning. Now, Onde Koza, as you may remember, or if you might know, began touring in the mid-70s, and when they started to do that, to me, they started to redefine what Kumidaiko was all about. And it's showing how the Taiko could be used in many different ways that were beyond what we were doing here and over here in the States, basically, which is festival drumming. As you probably might know, unfortunately, Onde Koza went through a split, as some groups many times happen, where Mr. Den, the leader of the group, had a difference with the members, the performing members, so he left and took all the drums, the name of the company, and moved to Nagasaki. And so all the members on the Koza stayed on Sado Island, and then they called themselves Kodo after that. This was happening about 1980, 1981. So when Kodo started, a new leader took over, and this was Toshio Kawauchi, or who we refer to as Hancho. I want to put this into place because Hancho is really kind of an important figure as far as taiko is for us, as far as this conference. It's a really important name to understand and know. Actually, there's two legendary people we need to recognize, and Hancho is one of them. So about 31 years ago, I had an opportunity to join Kodo when they were first doing the U.S. tour. And at that time, during that time, and being with the company, I had a great opportunity to really get to know Hancho and what he was thinking and how he was running the group and what he wanted to be doing for taiko, and not only for Kodo, but internationally. And so we had many opportunities during those times to just talk about the future, what taiko is all about, and what possibly could happen. So one of his great ideas that started, he came out with from all his own discussion, his own thinking, was one of the things he wanted to do was create a support group for Kodo at that time. So in the mid-'80s, about 1985 or so, he started talking about creating a group he called Kodo America. And so he invited a few people to join here in the States to kind of help formulate this. Alan was part of that. Dwayne Abato was involved. Another key person was George Ken Kochi, who was trying to really develop this Kodo America. Kodo America later on actually became CASA, or kind of emerged as CASA later on. But this initially, it was Hancho that wanted to bring together this idea of a support group to have Kodo, help Kodo, but also how Kodo could help the taiko community here in the United States. So in our discussions with him, there are many different things coming forward, but one thing we mentioned to him was the idea that it would be really great if we had some kind of gathering or a conference or something where Kodo could help us by bringing people in, perhaps from Japan, and we could help bring people together here in the United States to rally around that. So one of the things we talked about even at that time is that we didn't want to create an organization or federation of anything. We just, as Alan mentioned, we really didn't want to set policy or to dictate style or form or anything. And so we did not want to duplicate some of the things that were happening perhaps in Japan at that time with the Nihon Taiko Renmei, or the Taiko Federation that was going on. So we wanted to have more of a looser kind of organizational format that might be able to do something. Well, unfortunately, Hancho passed away. And so when that happened, all the discussions kind of ended with that idea with Kodo, because they were kind of in flux for what was going on. He passed away in 1987. But so as time went on, we still were a few of us were talking about the idea, trying to see how can we develop what taiko could be here in the United States. Dwayne Abato was one of those key people. He was the managing director at the JACC, or Japanese American Cultural Community Center in Los Angeles, at the theater there. And it was Dwayne that really decided finally, he says, well, we've been talking about this idea. Why don't we do it? So around in 1995, he decided to push forward to do this thing and to put together the first taiko conference in Los Angeles at the center in 1997. So we spent about 2 years. So he started recruiting a lot of different people. We started bringing people together to help plan it and organize the conference. Dwayne, that's his picture there. Dwayne, he wasn't a taiko player. I think there's many people in this room that know Dwayne, remember Dwayne very well, and we all have our own favorite memories and funny stories about him. But even though he was not a taiko player, he was definitely a person who really embraced and supported and wanted to push the taiko field forward. And so, and with his job, with his position being a presenter, he was able to bring taiko to the stage and do that in many different ways. And so he really tried to do his best to kind of promote taiko, and this conference is just one of those ideas. So Dwayne was, he's the other legendary person that we need to really understand and recognize and remember as far as the development of taiko in the United States. Unfortunately, we lost Dwayne in the year 2000. So when we first began the first conference, these were some of the goals that we established, which has been kind of the basic goals for the conference. We wanted to build a community of taiko groups in North America, document the taiko history, share traditions and repertoire, and support the artistic development of the art form. when we were designing the conference, we also tried to be as inclusive as possible, as Alan was mentioning. So the advisory group was really spread geographically. It was a real matrix of things we were trying to do. So geographic representation, whether there was professional groups or amateur groups or youth groups being represented, church, whatever, different kinds of groups we were trying to include as far as representation of voices within the advisory group. So it became a little bit complicated, but we were always trying to find that balance of different groups to be involved in planning the conference. When we first began the NATC, over the years, over time, since the first conference in '97 to the last one in 2011, we've had a total of 114 total workshop leaders. In 1997, 14 of those 14 workshops are presented. In 2011, we had 48 workshops. So you could kind of see the growth that has happened. Over the years, we've had 262 groups represented at these conferences. In '97, there were 69 groups, and in 2011, 113 groups. And so, as you can see, there's really been an interesting spread of different things that's been happening over the years. The other numbers, though, that I wish we had, but we really don't know, is the number of volunteers that have been coming involved with the conference. It's been hundreds and hundreds of people. And the other factor to that is the number of hours that those people have spent in order to help produce the conference. Because I know many times a lot of the volunteers, especially if you're on the equipment duty, and for those who have done that many times before, you probably got very little sleep during the conference time and saw very little besides perhaps a truck and a bunch of drums moving them around, because they just spent hours and just trying to do that and getting things done. So we've been really fortunate to have been able to produce a conference on such dedicated time for a lot of different people and a lot of volunteers in order to overcome the many obstacles that we face during the production of a conference. But it also has taken a lot of funding. And so over the years, we've been able to actually capture dollars from a variety of sources, from major foundations or the National Endowment for the Arts to Japan Foundation to other major, larger institutions, and also some corporate funding from like American Airlines, ANA, Wells Fargo Bank, and other different things. And different organizations and actually have stepped forward quite a bit too. This has been really important in order to help fund the conference and put it together. And we'll be going more into it later. I won't be talking too much about budget, but the budget of the conference has really ballooned over a number of years to really something that's been kind of significant that most people don't realize. I think we should be covering more of that information in our presentation tomorrow. So I want to start with the first conference here. In 1997, it was at the JACCC. Kevin Higa was the coordinator for that. That's his picture there on the side there. We estimate we had about 500 people at that conference. And one of the things that Dwayne said when he hosted that conference, that first one, he said at the end of the conference, he said he was willing to host the second conference, which would be in 1999. But he asked that all the regions really look at trying to do a regional conference in between that, because he wanted to really encourage taiko groups to come together to organize and help promote the field in their own way. Unfortunately, most of us didn't do that except for the Pacific Northwest, which was really the only area that really went forward and did that on a really serious manner. But I think now, as you see, there's a lot of regional activity happening, which has been really, really great to follow up. I want to just show you a little bit about the growth of the number of groups that were represented at that first conference. And moving on to the second conference, 1999. Brian Yamami, Brian's up. Where's Brian? Oh, there's Brian. Okay, he chaired the next three conferences. So in 1999, he took over. We think there's about 500 people. So I'm not sure. Brian, you might have to fill in some of these numbers for us. But about 500 people were at that conference in 1999. It was, again, back at the center. In that conference, couple of significant things that we were able to do. We brought in Hana Yui from Kodo for their first U.S. tour. We also had Miyake Taiko come in as workshop leaders. We had the support from the Kodo Foundation to help really do that. So it was really kind of important that we were trying to bring in international plus the North American Taiko members. again, showing you a little bit about the spread of groups that were represented in that conference. 2001 conference, we have Brian again running the conference back at the JACCC. Unfortunately, I don't have a number for this one. So I don't know, but I think Johnny mentioned maybe 600 people, so we're not quite sure. But at that conference, we had Hachijo Taiko come and Utaro Kaneko, again, through the Kodo Foundation to help represent us. So Kodo was, again, very helpful and involved in trying to help produce or sponsor the conference in many different ways by bringing people in for us as workshop leaders. So again, to show you the expansion and spread, a number of groups are represented for where they came from in the U.S. 2003, Brian again was in charge, and we took the conference for the first time, moved it out of Los Angeles because the LA folks are getting really tired by that point. Understandably why, why that was, but we were able to move the conference for the first time to Sacramento, so Cal State, Sacramento. Tiffany, I don't think Tiffany's here yet, but Tiffany kind of was the local partner on that, Tiffany Tamaribuchi. But that was our idea, was to start thinking about how we could move the conference around and what it would take to do that. And so at that conference, we had about 590 people attending. Again, it was the first time to move it out. I think that was the first conference where we had Taiko 10 organized, so that was a new idea that came in. We had a partnership with some outside things. We had Remo drums involved, and there was a lot of other workshop leaders that were non-Taiko related that we were trying to bring in just to try to expand the exposure and different kinds of things that were happening. Unfortunately, a little bit on the downside is we were also running into some financial issues and realizing that it's really difficult to manage the conference. So that was one of the conferences where we really felt the financial crunch of running this conference of this size. So again, to show you the spread of where the groups were coming from. So in 2005, we brought the conference back to Los Angeles. This time, Leslie Honda took over as the conference coordinator back in LA. We had about our records show 646 people were registered. So it was a large conference for the LA, Little Tokyo area, basically. I think we maxed out what we could do at that time with all the spaces and how to operate within Little Tokyo. We were trying to do different things with the conference again. I think one of the key things, one of the key issues or concerns that was in the community at that time was about open source music, having access to different things. So that was one of the big topics that was at that conference. Again, the conference ran a little bit in the red, unfortunately, so we were really concerned about that. And that started, I guess, beginning, and naturally you have to remember, 2001, 2003, 2005, financially and economically, the whole world was in a bad shape. So it wasn't just necessarily because the conference wasn't doing well, the whole world wasn't doing well. And so how do we kind of pull ourselves out of that was really kind of our issue or concern. And but also our financial supporter and sponsor, the JACCC all along, they were really concerned about that naturally. So we really had to start changing up and thinking about how we can manage this conference in a different way in order to make sure that it does have a future life. Again, I want to show you where the different people came from or different groups are represented for that conference. Okay, 2007. We moved the conference again out of Los Angeles, so we decided to, again, help the LA folks and move it around regionally. So we took it up north to the University of Washington campus in Seattle. See Stan, there's Stan right in the middle. Stan Shikuma helped set up the local committee and was really involved in helping with the local logistics of that conference. We had, our record showed about 505 people enrolled with that. One of the major events that we had at that particular conference, so is we had the Oedo Sukuroku panel, where we were able to bring 3 of the members of that group to that conference to talk about what, that whole Oedo Sukuroku style and how they started and what was happening. One of the issues, though, for the planning side for that conference is that because of what was happening with the JACC and other things, we did not know if we were going to actually run that conference until January of that year. So I know Stan could tell you many stories about how frustrating that was. It was frustrating for the advisory council at the time too, but we did not get a green light to move forward with the conference until January that year. So we had to really scramble at the last minute in order to help produce that conference, which was really difficult. And again, we'll be talking more about that, why it's so difficult, why a better plan needs to be put in place in order to make it happen. Again, to show you where all the different groups came from in order to that attended that conference. 2009, we moved the conference back to Los Angeles again, to the center. Darren Endo was our conference coordinator. We targeted for a smaller audience for many different reasons. At that time, the JACCC was kind of reducing in size a little bit, and the facilities that we normally had access to in future conferences were no longer available to us. And so we actually programmed for a smaller gathering, knowing that we could not facilitate a large gathering. So we targeted for a smaller number. I think it was about 400, which we reached. So it was a little bit of a surprise for people because basically people waited till the last minute and try to sign up and found out that we had closed the registration and you couldn't get in. But in order to really do what we wanted to do and try to accommodate the conference for the size and the facilities we had to do that for that conference. One of the key things that we did at that conference, though, was to do a tribute to Daihatsu Oguchi. But on the other side of that, as far as the planning side of the conference, again, we're having problems and working with the center and doing different things. So we couldn't get our conference coordinator on board until earlier, I guess the early part of that year in 2009, when we really wanted that person on board in 2008. So again, we were behind in our schedule as far as planning, so it made things very difficult again. So again, to show you where all the different groups came from in order to attend that conference. So 2011, the last conference we had, do you know who that is? Where is he? Oh, there he is. Yuta Kato. So he coordinated the conference for us. He was right here in Stanford. So I think many of you might have been there at that conference. We worked very hard to bring it up here to the Bay Area. It was registration-wise or attendance-wise, it was the largest conference we've had so far. We've been successful. I should also say that actually 2009, even though it was a smaller format, we were able to bring that conference into the black. So we were on a financial track of trying to manage the conference in a better way. But for the 2011 conference, because of different systems that we should be talking about tomorrow, we were able to definitely put the conference into the black. So it was really kind of nice to see that some of the hard work that we were trying to do in order to organize conferences finally taking place. Again, it was the largest gathering. We had put into place some things we've always wanted to do, like online registration, workshops online early, so people could sign up early on and know what they're signing up for. And we had Kyosuke Suzuki come in for the STI program that year, and he was a great teacher during the conference. So it was really definitely one of our highlights of doing the conference here. So to show you what groups attended to that one. Now looking forward, currently this is the map of the mapping of groups here in North America. It's kind of hard to really see the different groups that are existing. But to give you some information and background from our census information, and there'll be more given to you in one of the later sessions, but what's interesting is that the response to our census, we had, and I had to let you know that we had about 1,400 people respond, but the data here you're seeing is actually those people who actually responded to this particular question, which was, where they are living or where they are coming from. And so only about 800 people actually filled out that question. So from that, actually the largest proportion of people who were responding to the census are here in the U.S., but from the international side, we broke it into Canada, which is about 59 people, and internationally, the other outside was about 59 people. So it's definitely an interest that's growing for the Taiko community. We wanted to break this out a little bit for you on the international side, where the people are responding from, just to give you an idea where things are happening. So we're definitely seeing that there's an international trend to what the interest is for Taiko, especially what's happening here in the U.S. specifically. And so we're very proud for the fact that the conference has helped to inspire some of that, and naturally along with everything else that's going on outside of North America and also in Japan. So ending with this one quote here, and this is actually from Brian. But, you know, he kind of stated very clearly and very easily for us to, and I think this really kind of resonates for all of us. So it's really kind of important that in order to really do this, we need to be working together. So it's important to realize that during this weekend, it's our opportunity really to rethink and redefine and maybe reformat or reinvent somehow some of the things of what we've been doing for the Taiko conference. And it's our opportunity now to really make another statement for the larger Taiko community. When we had this conference in 1997, I felt that conference really did change the whole Taiko scene and community. It really opened it up to a different level of opportunities for people. And I think this gathering here today, you folks have that opportunity to do that again and for the future ones. So I think some of the things to keep in mind, though, is that we've discovered that our conferences in general has really addressed a younger Taiko experienced audience. So keep that in mind. But the other thing I would like to ask is that you think about how we could address really servicing the needs or what the older Taiko audience would like. Folks like me who've been around a little bit longer, maybe like Alan and Johnny, or Johnny who's been around longer. I don't know, no one else has been here longer than Johnny, right? Okay. But anyways, there's some of us, you know, when we come to conferences, you know, what's available for the more senior or experienced players? Or the teachers, you know, so because many times we get trapped into just doing that, the teaching side, where I think there needs to be activities that really addresses that other end. So something to think about how that could be addressed, or how the conference could really look at that piece for all Taiko players, not just the newer and younger ones. But in order to do this, I think, again, it's really important to have an open dialogue, transparency in what we're doing, and inclusion versus exclusion amongst all of us, how we're thinking and trying to move forward. Because the Taiko community is not going to grow if we don't work together to do this. So it's very important to do that. So I thank you for this opportunity to share all this with you. So it's my pleasure to bring the old guy here, Johnny Mori. And he's going to talk to you a little bit about how the JACC has been involved with this and the importance of that and where we stand with that situation with the center and the TCA right now.
おはようございます。Huh? Oh, yeah, but you know, no matter what. I may be have the distinction of the oldest experience here, but I am not the oldest person here. I'd like to thank Ellen and Roy for their presentation this afternoon, as far as letting everybody know where we pretty much started and came from, and hopefully everybody here can help determine the direction in which we're going to be going in. So I explained the initial involvement of the Japanese American Culture and Community Center, which we will call the JACCC, with its staff and the many, many volunteers that help put on the North American Taiko Conference. And throughout the years, you know, there have been a lot of successes. And there's also been a lot of adversities or little bumps. And I think this particular gathering here today is one of those situations in which kind of evolved from one of the bumps, so to speak. But after you reach this bump, on the backside of the bump, it kind of sort of propels you, kind of sort of makes you think and makes you want to, like, you know, as you got over the bump, you know, what you're going to do from that. And since the successes, I think that, again, this particular movement came. And not only this movement, but the question of, you know, what's going to happen with the next conference. And not only did the advisory committee ask that question, but a lot of you folks and a lot of the TICO community also asked that particular question. So here we are. We're going to be discussing our own future. So it's one in which we are able to determine that particular future. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking that the recent events at the JCCC were the main reason why we're sitting here today. But actually, this particular idea and concept started quite a while ago. Not necessarily from the very beginning, because it was totally infant stages and we didn't really know what we were doing. But probably, as Roy mentioned, the conference that happened in Seattle, again, that one in 2007, in which we really didn't know whether or not we were going to have a conference. There was a buzz about having a conference, but the leadership at the JACCC, again, was changing. And again, the economic situation and environment throughout the whole North America was in dire straits. I mean, the country was on the verge of bankruptcy. So again, we started to ask ourselves, who did the conference belong to and where was it going? Now, because of this, a lot of the funding sources were drying up. Not only that, this was probably, the fourth or fifth conference that were taking place. And so a lot of the foundations and funding sources were saying, well, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? You already did that, so what do you think about doing? So that raised a lot of questions for us also, too. So what we did was we had to rely upon the TICO community. And the TICO community, yourselves, responded quite a bit to the point where there was a profit for the 2007 conference. Because of this, and knowing that this, as we were starting to work on it and develop it, the support that we got from the TICO community was, again, enormous. To the point, again, we had this profit. So some of us had this conversation with Chris Ihara, who was the incoming. Actually, she was going to start as the CEO or president of the JACCC at the time. We sat down with her, explained the situation. At that time, she had been working at the JACCC for quite a while also, too. So she knew the importance of TICO and what was going to happen. So we asked her if the proceeds from this particular conference and from TICO Jam would be able to put into a special fund, and she agreed. So it was kept at the JACC, and it has been kept at the JACC in a restricted fund. So the next conference came up, we were able to use that particular fund to fund the future conferences. Because of that particular conference, since that particular conference, majority of the conferences that happened afterwards were in the black. So we started to build on this particular fund. The topic of creating a new organization was always kind of in the back of people's heads. But at the end of 2011, after one of the most successful conferences here at Stanford, and hosted by the South Bay Committee, so to speak, in the community here in San Jose area, again, we started talking about it. And in the beginning of 2012, it was again brought up. And again, unfortunate transitioning of the leadership at the JACC created the discussion to come forward. The South Bay Committee sort of brought it up, and then they brought it to the NATC Advisory Committee. And in October 2012, incorporation papers were filed with the state of California. And because of that, from that particular point to developing an account at a bank and the development of the current website, which will naturally be expanded, and also with the discussions between the advisory committee and the leadership of the JACCC, which took place this past April, the JACCC approved and executed the transfer of the funds to the TICO Community Alliance, entrusting the TCA with the responsibility of producing the next and future North American TICO conferences. From that, what I'd like to do now is I'd like to read this letter from the current CEO and President Leslie Ito. It goes, Dear TICO Community Alliance attendees, I wish I could be there in person to greet each of you. However, I hope that I have an opportunity to meet each of you next time you're in Los Angeles. The JACCC has a long relationship with the Taiko community, and we are proud to be part of that history as Taiko has flourished over the last couple of decades. We are just as pleased to see the community explore a new chapter in its history. With the ability to transcend language, culture, and borders, Taiko is one of the most important cultural assets in our community, and we need to continue building the infrastructure and leaders to ensure its longevity. Please know that the JACC will continue to be a partner. Please call on us when we can be of service. Sincerely, Leslie Ito, CEO and President, Japanese American Culture Community Center, August 23rd, 2013. The name Taiko Community Alliance was one of many ideas of naming this particular organization. We all know and experience what Taiko is and what it is, not only the physical instrument itself, but also the culture representing many aspects of it. Community, dictionary definition, a social, religious, occupational, or other group sharing common characters or interests and perceived or perceiving itself as distinct in some respect from the larger society within which it exists. Also, a group of associated organizations sharing common interests or a common heritage. Alliance, a merging of efforts or interests by persons, families, states, or organizations. So I think that's basically incorporates a lot of the individuals that are sitting here today, and hopefully we could explore and expand the meanings of what these definitions of Taiko Community Alliance is about. I know this is kind of interesting, but are there any questions? Does anybody have any questions? Good, because you guys are going to probably have to answer a lot of questions that are going to be brought up later on. This is sort of where we go from here. I think that what they asked me to do is to thank the web people that are watching this right now. And thank you for logging in and being part of this historic meeting or gathering. And we'll probably see you throughout the weekend, but for sure at the closing session. So that would conclude the web broadcast for today. Thank you very much. Bye.